Aloha mai kako. Welcome to OHA's Papakilo Database 10-year anniversary webinar series. We will be beginning in just a little bit. Thank you for your patience. Hope that your Aloha Monday evening is going well. If throughout the course of this presentation you do have any requests of questions that you might have, we'll do our best to get those out to you, but you can put it in the chat if you're on Zoom, or if you're tuning in on Facebook, you can put all your questions in chat, the comments as well, and we'll do our best to get those out to you. Some nice music by Brother Blaine Singh to kind of welcome you folks in. This is Aloha Monday. This is the Zoom login. Okay, so I'm sorry, there's a question that came in on Zoom. You need to register. I'm sorry, the question came in on Facebook. If you want to view it through Zoom, please log on to www.oha.org/Papakilo webinar. And I will put that in the chat or in the comments of the Facebook. All right. So we have some people tuning in on Facebook. We have some people tuning in on Zoom as well. And my name is Kale Hannes with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I'd like to welcome you all. We're going to be repeating ourselves just a little bit here and there as people log in. I know it's the end of a Monday for those of you who are working, and it's right around dinner time. So hopefully we can get this done quickly and get you folks on your way to your busy schedules. We're going to wait for just a couple more minutes as people log in. We are live on Facebook. If you prefer to view us on that way, you can go to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs Facebook website, and you can see we're live over there. For those of you tuning in on Zoom, thank you for joining us here and registering. If throughout the course of the presentation you have any requests of questions, feel free to jot it down in the chat section, or you can put it in the comment section on Facebook, and we'll do our best to get those out to you. At the end of this presentation, or at the end of this webinar, there is a survey that we would kindly ask you to fill out. So just so we know if we're doing a good job, number one. Number two, see how we can kind of adjust our presentations to better fit how you would like to view things, perhaps future topics that we could focus on as well. All of that can be found in the survey that is you can do afterwards if you're tuning in on Zoom. Okay, we have about 15 people, and I know our guest presenter, Mr. Zach Smith from the island of Maui, is eager to get going. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's just get the ball rolling. And if people tune in late, then they can either log back in later or check out the replay on Facebook. But this presentation or this webinar is being recorded, and we will be leaving it up on our OHA Facebook page, as well as posting it up on Papakilo afterwards for archival purposes and for future access. My name is Kale Hannes with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I am the Archival Information Specialist within the Research Division of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And for the past, I'd say 13 or 14 years, I've been working on this database or a project called the Papakilo Database. Since our live launch on April 4th of 2011, we have had a number of successes with community successes, user successes, and I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how we got to where we are, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zach Smith. Once again, this is a production of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. This is the second session, but fourth installment. I think that's the proper terms of a 10-year anniversary webinar series celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Papakilo Database. Now, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs takes care of many things throughout the community. You know, there's community engagement, we take care of public policy, there's land management, and in research, we do various reports, create demographics, and so on and so forth. Through our compliance work, we review environmental assessments, impact statements, cultural impact statements, and so on and so forth, Section 106s. While we were doing that, we collected a vast collection of reports, and these reports were so valuable that we wanted to be able to make this accessible to not only our staff members, but to the general public as well. So oftentimes when we reply to these requests for compliance review, as we call it, we not only rely upon the reports that is given to us by the contractor or whoever is doing the reports, but we also do our own research, and we try to envision what would it be like if we could be able to cut down the time, instead of going to Bishop Museum, instead of going to the State Archives, and instead of going to the Bureau of Conveyance to do all this research. What if we had access to all of these great collections just from our office, or even if we're working at home, such as now, just working at home. So what we decided to do is pretty much dream. We created our own digital dream, if you will. So of course we have access to the environmental and cultural assessments. We would like access to digitized historic documents, such as Mahele records or Hawaiian language newspapers, reports, historic maps, statistics, and then the list goes on and on with wind names and rain names and place names and images, photos, audio and visual stuff, and of course, GIS was involved. So what happened after that was Papakilo evolved. Papakilo, Papa meaning foundation or kilo, and kilo, which means to seek out or to search. Together, they make up the term that we call our Papakilo Database, which is a database of databases made up of various collections that can be found throughout our community archival partnerships and made accessible online to not only OHA's beneficiaries, but to the general public as well. How do we do this? Well, there was a lot of work that needed to be done, a lot of research on our part to see what system would be best for us. And after extensive research on different database companies, server companies, and so on and so forth, we hired our consultants down in Aotearoa or New Zealand called DL Consulting. And we just started throwing in some collections that we had within our own databases, such as the compliance reports, you know, the SHPD index, historic land records, so on and so forth. And the idea was to see how could all of these different databases or collections, if you will, kind of play with each other. And what we came up with is now known as the Papakilo Database. We officially launched on April 4th, 2011 with a very humble 13 collections, just about 500,000 records from 7 partnering organizations. Now I see our numbers have kind of bumped up a little, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to say, if you do have any questions throughout the course of the presentation, feel free to leave it in the chat, or you can, if you're viewing on Facebook, you can put it in the comment section. We're monitoring both, and so we will try and get to those as soon as we can. Okay. Thank you, Marilyn, for that question. I'll get to that in just a little bit, and I think our presenter might have an answer for that. But thank you very much for your question. And for those of you looking at the chat, that is exactly what you would need to do. Just put your questions in there and we'll do our best to get to them. So the official launch back of the Papakilo database on April 4th, 2011 was a success on a lot of different parts of not only Office of Hawaiian Affairs, but our partnering archival organizations. And we found that a lot of people were accessing this database to get to see Hawaiian language newspapers. They were accessing Mahele records. And of course, they were doing genealogy research. And 10 years later, from, let me see, what did we do? We did 13 collections, 500,000 records, 7 partnering organizations. We are now up to 70 separate individual collections, as well as over 1.1 million records. And we have expanded from 7 partnering organizations to 18, and that number grows every year. Here are some numbers from that 10-year span. It was a slow start, and to be quite honest, we haven't really done a lot of promotion of Papakilo. A lot of it is word of mouth. We've been able to reach out into the schools and work with researchers that way, students, and as well as the archival community and their users or their beneficiaries. It's really been slow, and this is kind of our first attempt to really reach out and expand I guess everybody's knowledge of what Papakilo is. So we've had almost 5.5 million page views through that 10-year span, and people are logging in from all over, from not only here in Hawaii, but the mainland as well, specifically California, Washington, and the West Coast. We have people also logging in from Europe, Japan, Aotearoa, and many other parts around the world. So these are the people that are benefiting from having access to the page, actually to the database. And you know what, I will be honest, it can be kind of daunting. People, when they come in, they do usually one of 4 search topics. They're searching by location, they're searching by genealogy or looking for genealogy, they're looking up Mahele records, or they're looking through the Hawaiian language newspaper. When you click on the search by collection, you can see the various collections that we had. Now, it doesn't look like we have 70, but after clicking on some of these boxes, it'll drop down and provide like the 6 or 7 collections from Bishop Museum, or the 5 different subcategories of the Mahele records. So if you have time, later on, you can kind of click and see how many collections we have, and just you won't break the database. Just log on, take a turn with it, and as always, we are available to help answer questions and do tutorials. And our contact information is located on papakilodatabase.com. One of the other things that we just recently updated was a search by location page, and we were able to integrate an interactive mapping feature by connecting directly to our Kīpuka database, which is a great segue that we're going to use to move into who our panelist is today. We have joining us Mr. Zach Smith. Zach has been, in all honesty, Zach has been working with Kīpuka from the very beginning, and he is located on the island of Maui. And he is here to present on the Kīpuka database and show how it ties into Papakilo, and kind of answer some of your questions when it pertains to especially land research or search by location. So without further ado, Zach, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Kale. And congratulations on 10 years of Papakilo. It's amazing. So, as Kale mentioned, my name is Zach Smith. I'm a GIS specialist in the research department at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And I have been working, I came aboard just after the launch of Papakilo and was tasked with assembling the spatial side of this type of database. So anything that had locational data I was given, and sort of and within a few years, we were able to create the spatial complement to Papakilo, the Kīpuka database. And I'll talk all about the functions and the features of Kīpuka and how they relate to searches and how it's tied in as a complement to Papakilo. So please let me know if there's any questions or if there's any audio video issues. I'll try to speak clearly, and hopefully the neighborhood noise won't be too much of a bother.
Will do, Zach.
Thank you. So let me share here my screen. And I'm going to open up first the Papakilo database homepage. It won't let me share, Kale, while the other participant is sharing, so you might have to unshare.
Let me try and figure that out. We were able to do it last time. More. Okay, try that now.
There we go. Thank you for your patience. Can you see the screen now?
Yep, all good.
All righty. So yes, here we have the Papakilo homepage, and it's aligned based on these popular searches. But up until about less than a year ago, there was no search by location feature. So there was no way to visualize geographically or spatially the information. It was a text search. And so let's take a look at the search by location page, where you can kind of navigate geographically to a location and see the records within. So here you have a map of the islands. You click on one island, it'll zoom in, be a further breakdown of, in this case, the Moku. Selecting one will allow you to, again, then select a Ahupua'a. And within that, you can search for any of the records using this location. So newspapers, mahele, or historic sites. And a separate type of search, advanced search, search by collection, allows you to select Kīpuka as one of the collections, and we'll search the records in that manner. So we can select on that. Let's try search by mahele records. And if you're selecting Kīpuka, it'll search our records as well. So I'm going to look at that Ahupua'a that we just looked at. And it brings up a Kīpuka record, as well as mahele awards from the Mahele Aina Index. And to get to our Kīpuka database interface, you can just select the symbolized K button there, and it'll open up what we call our details page. So it shows an outline of the feature, and each details page for each layer will have different kind of information, and we'll kind of get into that when I talk about the layers. But locational information, description, in this case, it's a crown land, so a description of that land. Any maps that are associated with that. It also has, as part of our layers, land awards and historic sites or place names. And within each details page, you can navigate between other pages. So if you're actually looking at some of these land awards and you select one, it'll bring up the details for that page. So there's a navigation method where you can kind of move between details pages, and you can search Kīpuka through Papakilo. So I'm going to bring up the Kīpuka homepage, which is kīpukadatabase.com. And when you start here, there's the option to enter Kīpuka, the main web application. And in addition to that application, we also have a series of more focused web maps about demographic data. In this case, Papakilo. So these are more targeted, simple versions of Kīpuka, essentially. But let's enter Kīpuka, and you're brought up to this another geographic view of all the islands. So when it first starts, the only layer that's on at this scale is this moku layer. But as you zoom in, other layers will come on, and the other traditional land boundaries, the ahupua'a, some ili, and then eventually zooming in closer, we'll turn on tax map key parcels, so the actual individual house lots. So in addition to the traditional land boundaries, we also have the current government land ownership. So here you have federal in blue, Hawaiian homesteads in red, and state-owned lands in green. And if you click on any of these, they'll bring up information about those, whatever layer is on. So in this case, we have a national park, federal, a DLNR, Nature Conservancy land, other state land, as well as the actual moku that are within that click. Zooming in further, we'll bring up the ahupua'a detail, and that's that green. So as we turn off that government lands layer, you see these crown lands symbolized, as well as these ahupua'a. So if there's a specific place you're looking at, let's see if we can find the roadway. You can actually click on it and bring up that very same details page. In this case, it's the ahupua'a page, has the same maps, sites, land awards. And these traditional land boundaries or these geographic boundaries all have details pages. They're all features, and they bring in whatever sites, place names, or land awards are mapped within those. So as we get closer, still, you get to a scale where you can see the historic sites, these brown stars and boxes and lines represent those historic sites. And that's one of the main layers of within Kīpuka. So we have place names represented by these triangles. And we have archaeological sites from our Historic Preservation Division database that shows basically any site that's been registered with the state. So it's assigned a state archaeological number, and then there's information regarding that. And within each of these sites, again, there's details page for that feature. So for this fish pond, it has the basically the archaeological notes. So where they try to determine the form and function of a place, in this case, the fish pond, as well as the state number, the site number, and a report number for that site. So all of these historic sites are a main feature of Kīpuka, as well as, if you get closer, these land awards symbolized by the yellow shapes here. So we have multiple different types of land awards, land commission awards with or without patents on them, government grants that are patents from the government, as well as other types, deeds, grants to the Board of Education, and other types. For each of these land awards, there's a details page along with the very same documents or perhaps different versions of all those scanned land award documents that Kale was talking about. So in this case, this is a government grant. So for this detail page, it brings up the shape of the award, a description of it, the historic sites and place names within that specific award, and then those scans of the documents. So in this case, there's a scanned grant patent, and it tells you the awardee. These are the survey notes, course, and signatures authorizing the patent, essentially. So that's a government grant. And we also have the Land Commission Awards in both formats. This is essentially a Konehiki Award, so a large grant of land. For the Land Commission Awards, we also have those documents, the Land Commission Award record, the Native Register testimony, Foreign Register, foreign testimony if available, any patent grant that's on that. So in this case, this land award was patented. The entire land of Kamalo, almost 4,000 acres in 1902. So the land awards layer, as well as the historic sites layers, are the kind of important geographical layers within Kīpuka that are not really necessarily found other places, but really represent the backbone of our database. And each of these details for those house the documents that you can also find here in Papakilo, but they have the spatial awareness in that you can find all of these awards or features within area that you are interested in. So if you are looking at a specific point, we have tools to select all of the features within an area, and it will select from the land awards layer, historic sites layer, as well as the land boundaries, and bring up all the results for those. And you can actually access the details of those records through this search result section by clicking on the details button. So for this case, this land award is a Kuleana land award, Land Commission Award, that is patented in 1863. So there's a land award document as well as a patent on that land award. And these are the smaller ones that are more related to the people living on the land that were not large landowners or Konehiki or Li'i at the time of the mele. So this research that we've done and put up into Kīpuka kind of paints a picture of an area, the land tenure of a specific place. And we also have the ability to select within a certain range. So you can use this select circle to determine any of the features within 500 feet or whatever you use. The same kind of results. So now that we're zoomed in at this scale, you can see that there's a TMK layer. So that's the modern county-based tax map key parcel layer. And that information tells you, oh, pardon me, what the tax map key number is, ownership, and trust land status if available. And for each of the tax map key layer features, there's again a details page. And for this particular layer, it shows you a link to the property report from the county. So it just accesses these county property reports through the details page, as well as ownership information awards that were within the bounds of that, and place names and sites, and a link to plat map of that TMK. So that's yet another layer of information that is combined all in these GIS layers through Kīpuka. So in addition to navigating with your mouse and clicking or selecting an area to search for something, there's also our search bar, which much like Papakilo, you can enter term in and will bring results. So if we are looking up a specific place, we can select it and find our location or what sites start with that name. You can also search for claimant names. So if we take a look at this place, we can, in their details, we can see that within Ualapue, there are many land awards, I'm hoping, as it loads. Oh, I see. I was on the place name. So here's the Ahupua'a with the land awards. And if one of these names was a person we are searching for, you can actually search for that in the search bar as well. So you can take this one. You'll find all of the land awards awarded to those names. And within that, you can see at this scale, they're all throughout the islands. The one we were looking for is here. I forget what the number was. Yep. And you can zoom to that feature.
Is that, if you don't mind, can we take a quick pause? We had some questions that came in.
Absolutely.
So the first question is, let me see. This hopefully is a quick answer. Can you run a search by typing the address in?
So at this time, that address search doesn't actually work. It doesn't have the connection like Google Maps or Apple Maps where it would find a location based on address. So that is a good question. No, it does not search by address at this time.
Okay. And then the second question that also came in, and I guess it refers to Papakilo or Kīpuka. I know we don't have it within Papakilo, but maybe you folks have it within Kīpuka. And that question was, does the Papakilo database or Kīpuka include the inventory of public trust lands?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's a couple of answers to that, I guess. We have, as I mentioned with the tax map key parcels, we have something called trust land status as one of the attributes. So if you're looking at a specific parcel, let's go zoom into the TMK level. Here we have a large privately owned parcel. There's a feature, or there's an attribute here that's trust land status. And in this case, it's privately owned, so it's not part of what we call, what the state's trust land inventory is. And so this data comes from the DLNR. They had a program where they tried to inventory their lands and assigned trust land status to those lands. And so that little feature there will give you the return of that database. So let's try to find one that's actually, and by trust land status, they essentially mean what Admissions Act paragraph they're referring to. And that determines whether that is part of the lands that are returned to the state of Hawaii at the time of statehood. That determines whether it's part of the lands that generate revenue that provides some of OHAʻs revenue. It determines whether that is part of the lands that there's a undetermined claim for Native Hawaiians on. So this 5B is essentially the paragraph of the Admissions Act that kind of outlines what type of land that is. So to say we have the trust land inventory in Kīpuka is misleading a little, because this is a DNR-based version of that trust lands, and it's really only assigned by these categories, which can be fluctuating. So it's a really complicated issue. However, part of our research at OHA is mapping out lands from the Mehele time forward, and that's what these land awards basically are representing, is first title of land that is being either removed from the crown lands or removed from government land ownership. So at the Mehele, they basically determined if large tracts of lands, by name only really, are part of Kamehameha III's lands that became the crown lands, or if they're given to the government, or if they're awarded to Konehiki, and then Konehiki are allowed to apply for these large land commission awards that are patented. So in this case, in Kavela, the entirety of it was awarded to Konehiki through the land commission award process. So by mapping from the Mehele, we're identifying what lands are crown, what lands are government, and then mapping land awards up through statehood that basically remove land from corpus of those lands. So again, it's not a complete answer, but we are mapping out land. We can take a crown land. So if we have Walapule is crown. So the entirety of this land was crown at the Mehele, and then every land award within it is removing parts of that land to private hands. And so whatever is remaining is part of the land that was determined to be public land after the overthrow, and then ceded land during the territorial period. So in that way, we can see where are those lands. So sorry for the long answer, but it is a complicated issue. And it's not easy to determine at this point.
Thank you, Zach. I think there's a comment, and I think maybe I just want to bring it to your attention more as perhaps this also needs a little bit more explanation. But there's a comment: in some areas, the address is, and this is referring to the search, being able to search by address.
Oh, yes.
But there's a comment that says, but in some areas, the address is the tax key number. Have you seen that kind of be the case in some of the research that we've done?
Like a home address, maybe?
Right.
We have, so if there's no results, there's these kind of guides for how to search. So you can search by name or moku name. And for the TMK parcel, if you do know the number of that parcel, you can search for it. We have a guide to how it's best entered into the search terms, because it's written in a lot of different ways with colons and parentheses and dashes. So we tell you to use formats without dashes. But if you do know the TMK number, it will go straight to that TMK. I don't have an exact number here, but I can kind of, if you can start with it and you can find all of those TMKs. So if you were looking for a specific place, in this case, this one is owned by the DNR, and so it's probably has some trust land status. But yeah, the search, we only have the searching by TMK number at this point.
Thank you, Zach. I'll leave you to get back to your presentation, but for those of you who are kind of logging in late, whether it's on Zoom or on Facebook Live, we want to welcome you. And if you do have any questions for Zach or myself, Kalehanis, feel free to please put it in the comments on Facebook or in the chat in Zoom, and we can come back around and get those answers to, hopefully get some of those answers to you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
go
kind of
ahead.
went pretty into depth with details, but I can go pull back a little bit and talk a little more about what Kīpuka does have. So some of the basic functions we have with the layers are the ability to turn them on or off. And as you zoom in, they come on or off. And you can also change the transparency. So if you just wanted to see the background imagery, you can also change those maps to include labels. So if you are trying to orient yourself, oftentimes this will be the street level map might be easier to find a place. So you actually have that ability to change that. And in addition to that, we have set up these kind of standard bookmarks, but they're also available to, if you're returning and you have a specific area you're looking at in Kīpuka, you can kind of create your own bookmark and it'll persist through the sessions and you can come back to that at any time. So go back to use the bookmarks to kind of navigate as well. And then if there is questions that I'm going through it pretty fast. So, but if you're just new to Kīpuka, there's this question mark bar where you can contact us asking questions, or you can use our kind of guides to figure out how to search or what our tools do or how to get around. Let me see, this one is, yeah, so there's like a guide to how to navigate and what these windows are and buttons do. And that's just accessible through this question mark one. So there's the search, you have your tools, you have your layers, turn that back on, bookmarks, our base map you can change, and then a help section.
Zach, one comment came in. They said, if we find that certain LCAs are not mapped in Kīpuka, but are recorded in historic maps and records, can we contribute our shapefiles of individual LCAs to OHA for use in Kīpuka?
Wow, okay. That's a good question. I would say just reach out to us and let us know, and we would be happy to work with you about that. We definitely have, if you can see here, our land awards section, we have grants, we have land commission awards, and we have unmapped land commission awards. So I think that's what you're talking about. So perhaps in our mapping projects, we didn't hit it, we didn't catch one, or we didn't have the right map source perhaps. So I think providing the map source would be the best option for that. Or if it was a private map collection, potentially getting that digitized, or at least having us use that as a reference in order to map it. But yeah, that would be amazing, because that is something that is included in our database, but if we don't have a shape, then we wouldn't have a section, a details page to look at that. So you can actually look at some of our document scans are kind of easy to navigate as well. So for example, our grants, if there was a grant that was not mapped, so in this case, this is mapped, you can really just put in whatever grant number you want. And we have the documents for that. So same as if you search here. Ooh, I don't know if you have grants, but let's see. 6. Yeah, so it'll bring up the documents. Oh, this is also searching Kīpuka, but can use Papakilo's versions as well. Patent. So yeah, that's a great question. I think that would be amazing. Just I'll put my email in the chat and you can reach out to me if you have any unmapped, if you find unmapped land awards or any errors. There's a lot of work and a lot of times errors slip through. So if you notice something is not quite right, reach out to us. There may be a real reason for it, but it may just be a mistake. So we're always happy to receive feedback of any kind.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah, so that is about the basic functionality. Is there any place anybody wants to like look at while we're here and see what kind of resources or features we have? Go ahead and write that in there. Otherwise,
nothing is coming in through the chat right now, so go ahead and take it, Zach.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all of our layers kind of run through really fast. If there's anything anyone's interested in further detail, I can go through that. But you can kind of restart and take a look at kind of a workflow for looking up band awards or otherwise. So you open up Kīpuka from kīpukadatabase.com. You just open a new one. It'll take a second to load.
While that's loading, Zach, there's another question. Are there plans to make Kīpuka shapefiles downloadable?
The shape files themselves can be accessed through our state GIS portal for certain layers. So I think Moku, Iwi. The TMK layer is something that counties provide and is accessible through our state's GIS system. What we do is we take those county data, we add in our trust land status information, and then upload it on an annual basis. So it's not as up to date, particularly as the counties will provide. Again, government land layer, again from the state. So that's available publicly. But the land awards layers and historic sites layers are not downloadable. However, the results are. So if you're searching for sites in an area, I mean, I can just enter any area here, and then you can actually export the results through this button or print out details pages. So place name, you can select the details. You can print out the details page as well. Or let's see, I think the export is just a, it's just the listing of the search results. But as far as layers go, all of them are available except for, I guess, the Crown lands, land awards, and historic sites. That's a good question.
Zach, we had another question come in. Is there any historical data showing boundaries of the ocean or sea floor pre-statehood? And I guess what they're trying to clarify is like showing what marine areas are a part of a given moku or ahupua'a.
Yeah, so pre-statehood, there are a number of map sources, depending on the area, that would have information about fisheries or fish ponds. It's really area specific, and it's related to that map source. So if we had a good map source, we could digitize it and outline the fisheries. Certain ahupua'a, when they're, let me take a look at one. That one will not have one. I'll take a look at this one because it will have a, so for this ahupua'a, there's going to be a boundary certificate. And so basically this boundary commission was tasked with surveying the boundaries of a ahupua'a if there was any kind of land dispute, or to possibly get a patent on that. And within those, they kind of survey the borders, and they'll actually mention whether or not the fish pond or the fishery is part of that land. So that's kind of like a roundabout way And it's definitely specific to that location. There's some fisheries maps of Oahu I know of, but those sources would be located within, if we had it, it would be in Kīpuka, but other map repositories. So these registered maps that are linked in are available publicly through the STAGs, the state's, what is it called? Accounting General Services or something like that. They have a map repository where you can look up all the registered maps or other plat maps and homestead maps, some of which have those fisheries. But there's also, depending on the location, like if there's a harbor, so if we go to Kaunakakai, probably we'll have, they always have the harbors, which are of importance at the time. So they'll actually have the depths as measured. You see, so for this case, I don't know if this is going to open a PDF or not. Yeah, I don't think it's going to open, but this map itself would show the bathymetry, is it called, of the ocean there. Those are only in the harbor sections mostly because that's where they were interested in mapping the seafloors. But it would be a cool project to kind of use that information in a GIS format. Very cool question. Again, I guess we don't really have all the answers. Kind of, Kīpuka is one of those tools that it really just starts to get you to understand enough to ask more questions. So if there's any interesting research you're using Kīpuka for, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to assist in any way I can. Yep, so the Ahupua'a details will again have all the land awards and the sites and place names within the boundaries, as well as any associated maps and any boundary information available. I think that's pretty much the rundown. Again, what do you think, guys?
Well, thank you, Zach, for definitely presenting a lot of information. I'm sure that some people are going to need some time to think about it. I have put contact information for both myself and Zach in the comment section, or you can go to papakilodatabase.com or kīpukadatabase.com to get to check out the databases, number one, or you can find our contact information over there as well. So we are gonna, if there's no more questions, we are still gonna stay on for maybe the next 7 to 10 minutes. If anybody has questions that they might think of in just a little bit. But we really do appreciate everybody who has logged on and been able to hopefully learn some things about Papakilo Database and Kīpuka Database. This is the second installment and the fourth presentation of Papakilo's 10-year anniversary webinar series. Big mahalo goes out to Zach Smith, who has been working kind of side by side with me with his Kīpuka and my Papakilo to really try and make information accessible to not only our lahui, but to the general public as well. Throughout the course of, even when you leave here, if you think of a question later on, feel free to email us. At the end of this, for those logging in on Zoom, there is a little survey that I think activates and allows you to fill out. So please let us know how we did. That way we can kind of not only improve our own presentation, but kind of get an idea of what you want to see in the future. Next month, in the month of June, the third installment of the 10-year anniversary Papakilo webinar series. Maybe I got to find a shorter name for that. But the third installment will feature one of Papakilo's partners called Ulu Ulu, which is the digital moving archive based out in West Oahu, and they will be they have some collections that are within Papakilo Database, and you will be able to kind of tune in and learn the value of those digital moving archive videos that they have not only kind of digitized but made accessible as well. Zach, there's a comment by Alika. We are producing HD underwater maps of seafloor, living coral, and fish populations. It is georeference maps, and we wanted to add it in the context of Ahupua'a systems. So he'll reach out to you in the future. And I guess that's one thing that we also want to say, that, you know, myself and Zach and a lot of the members here at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, we do often kind of get bogged down in our work. But if you would like to see certain pieces of information, like, or perhaps in the future, let me see, what did shape files, if you do have something to contribute, or if you would like to see a collection added to Papakilo Database, feel free to message us as well, and we'll definitely have that conversation and see if there's anything we can do when it comes to that.
I would say something like that would be really interesting. It would be something we would probably include in the map gallery, where we would have that incredible imagery it was, and tied in, and then put in the Ahupua'a layers, and then even maybe some attribute information related to that. That's right. The exact kind of thing that we put down here in a map gallery, and then we can share it around, and it's always publicly available.
Yes. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us. We have a couple more minutes where I know I'll stay on to see if there's any stragglers or anybody that wants to have any more questions. These videos, all the videos as part of this 10-year anniversary of Papakilo webinar series will be not only accessible on OHA's Facebook page, but in maybe a couple of months or so, we'll be posting these videos and making them accessible for people who haven't been able to attend these workshops to go back and access. They'll be uploaded to Papakilo Database as well. So if you enjoyed the presentation and you wanted to pass that information along to somebody else, you can point them to our Office of Hawaiian Affairs Facebook page, and they can watch the replay of this whole video. Or in the future, if you wait a couple months, you'll be able to access these videos on papakilodatabase.com. I know people have places to go to and things to do, and some people are hungry. So on behalf of myself, Kale Hannes, and Mr. Zach Smith, we just want to say mahalo once again to everybody who was able to join us. We hope that you malama pono, take care, and feel free to tune in and check out next month's feature of Ulu Ulu, the digital moving archive, as part of Papakilo's 10-year anniversary webinar series. Thank you very much, everybody. Malama pono and aloha.